Hello everybody, Jesse here from Jess-Inspired. It's video number 3 of our Django series, and I'm excited today guys because we're going to be building our first Django app. So today's video is going to be ranging from understanding the difference between the project and an app in Django, to views in Django, to URLs in Django, to templates in Django, and all that good stuff. So I have lots of good stuff in store for you guys today. So without further ado, let's just get started. So to help us understand apps and other concepts going forward, I'd like us to adopt a project-based learning approach. And in keeping with this, we are going to be building a quiz project to help us learn and understand better. So it's a simple project to set quiz questions for students, to grade them, to assess them, okay? And we are going to be naming the project Cuisine. We are cooking right now, aren't we? So we can go ahead and rename the root directory from _base to cuisine. I'm going to use a hyphen just like that, and then I'll seed into it. Now our cuisine project, like any other project, should be made up of a combination of different features. Now by features, I mean things like authentication. Okay, so authentication is a feature. It should also have a feature to handle the dashboard for the students. It should have a feature to handle the marking of the scripts. It should have a feature to score the students, okay? It should have a feature just in case for notification for the students. Now, each of these features in Django is what we call an app. So the authentication feature is actually an authentication app in Django. The user dashboard feature is actually a user app in Django. Okay, so the feature to handle the scoring of the quiz and the questions and all that is actually a quiz app in Django. So in a nutshell, an app is simply a module or feature within your Django projects. Something else to note about apps in Django is that they are highly portable and reusable, okay? So this is actually one of the major strengths of Django, is that the apps that you create here, you can easily move them to other projects, or you can share them with others because they are highly portable and they are actually highly reusable. So if you create, for example, an app for notification or authentication, you can move it from one project to another. So let's go ahead and create our very first app. So I'm going to call this app quiz because it's going to handle some of the basic logic for our cuisine project. So to do that, I'm going to type in Python 3 manage.py start app quiz. So this is the command that you put right here to actually start an app. And then here is the name of the app, which I'm calling quiz. I'm going to hit enter. And right here, you see I currently have a new app created, which is quiz. So before we explore our quiz app, I'd just like to remind us of the very first video when we created a project and we named it _base. We later went ahead to rename the root directory to cuisine, but then we kept the project package as _base. And I told you I like this as a matter of personal preference, and I'm going to tell you why right now. So in VS Code, these directories, they are organized alphabetically, okay? So just imagine if you named your projects package, maybe projects, for example, right? If you had an app like authentication, auths, your project package would be under that auths, or it could be somewhere in the middle of your file structure, and a lot of times it makes it somewhat difficult to spot in your file structure. So I like to use the underscore here to make it that it's always at the top of my file structure. And then I like the name base because this tells me this is not an app. This is what contains the base settings of my project. Okay, so the underscore always ensures that the project's package is at the top, and base just tells me this is not an app. This is what contains the base settings of my project. So I hope that made sense, guys. So now let's go ahead and open up our quiz app. So we have a bunch of files here and one directory called migrations, which we are going to be exploring very soon. But then you see this init.py showing that this app is actually just a Python package. But then it's a special kind of Python package that is organized in a way that Django can understand it. So initially, when you create an app, the first thing you want to do is to install that app in your project. Because in as much as you have started the app and it is right here in your root directory, yet your Django project isn't aware that this app is supposed to be included in it. Okay, so in order to include the app in your Django project, you want to go to your settings.py over here to install apps. Now, there are two ways of installing apps in Django. The first of them is what I call the simple way, or more technically, the app name only way. So simply all you need to do is to type in the name of the app. So in our case, the name of the app is Quiz. So I'm going to type that in, and just like that, I've been able to install the Quiz app in my project. Secondly, we have what I call the explicit way. Now to understand this, I'd like us to open up our Quiz app and go over to the file apps.py. So in this file, you have this class quizconfig, which inherits from app_config. And don't let this throw you off. As the name suggests, app_config or app configuration, okay, it's a class representing a Django application and its configuration. So whenever your app is loaded, whatever you specify right here is how your app would be configured. But we're not going to major on this right now. We just want to copy the name of this class, which is quizconfig, and head over to settings. So what you want to do right now is to specify the path to this class quizconfig. Now quizconfig is located inside apps, and apps is located inside quiz. So we'll go ahead right now and type in quiz.apps.quizconfig, just like that. So now we've installed the quiz app. I'd like us to add a simple quiz homepage. And to do that, we're going to be using this file, views, inside the quiz app. Now, in views in Django, right, is basically a file where you define logic for handling HTTP requests. So whensoever you have a route and you make a request to that route, the route is linked to a view. The view processes that request and returns a response. Basically, the view is either a function or a class that views the request that is being made, processes it, and returns a corresponding response. So in our case right now, we want to define a view that will handle requests made to the home routes. So to get started, we are going to be creating what is called a function-based view, FBV. Now, there are two kinds of views in Django, which I said earlier. There is a function-based view, and then there is a class-based view. But the function-based views are relatively easier for beginners, so that's what we are going to be using right now. So let's define our function, def get home. And then we want to return a HTTP response, okay? So the simplest way to do that is to type in return, and then I'm going to be using this function from django.http called HTTP response, okay? So this is more like the easiest way to get started, all right? So this accepts a string. So I'm just going to type in cuisine home, just like that. Now, while this looks good already, there is nothing in this function that gives us access to the details of the user's requests. There's no way for us to know, for example, if the user is authenticated or not, if the user submitted a form or not, for us to see cookies or session info, actually nothing. Right, you can put it this way, there's no data for us to view, right? It's called views for a reason. There should be something to view. Well, in Django, there is something called a request object that is created as soon as a user makes a HTTP request. Now, this request object actually stores all the details of the user's request and is passed as the first argument to your view. So I'm just going to pass it right here, requests. Now, this could be called anything, basically, it just has to be the first parameter. But by convention, and it is best practice that you call it requests. So a real life analogy of this would be like a client that goes to a restaurant to make a request. So when the client makes a request for what to eat or what to drink, the waiter listens to the request, takes notes of the client's requests, then takes it back to the kitchen. The kitchen processes the request and then returns a response, okay? So in context, the waiter would be likened to Django. So Django listens for the request, okay, and takes notes of the requests. So the waiter taking note of the request would be likened to Django making a request object, because the request object contains all the information of the user's request. Now our view in context would be like the kitchen that processes the request and then returns a response back to the client via Django. So I hope that made sense, guys. So now we have our home view. We want to hook this up to a corresponding home route. And the easiest way to do this for starters is to go over to our projects package URLs, and we are going to import the function getHome. So from quiz.views import getHome. All right, then we are going to add a new path. Let's call this home, and it's also best practice to add a / here in Django. Then we are going to add the function here as a parameter getHome. Now if I hover on path, notice that it has about 4 parameters: route, view, route, which is a string, which we can see here. Then we have view, which is the second parameter. Then we have a keyword args, and then we have name. Okay, so we are not going to be focusing on the last two, just the route and the view for now, because that's sufficient for what we want to achieve. So let's save this and then go ahead and run our development server. Then we can open this up in our browser. So you see, guys, that visiting the route no longer displays the default Django welcome page, right? Because I've begun defining custom routes, okay? And I haven't defined any routes for the routes. That's why it gives me a 404. But if I should go ahead and type in /home, you see that it gives me cuisine home, which I defined in my views. Isn't that wonderful? Then going forward, we can just go ahead and remove this, and let's just be an empty path. So by doing this, we are defining the path for the route. So now I can go ahead and do this. So right now you see that my view is now being tied to the route path. Does that make sense, everybody? Alright guys, so that's all we can take for this one because of our time. I don't really want it to spill over and become much more longer than this. But then in subsequent videos, we're going to talk about templates, we're going to talk about Django design pattern, the MTV model. There's a lot of stuff that is in store for you guys. So you guys just watch out, stay tuned, and if you're new here, please subscribe. If you liked the video, please go ahead and hit that like button. And yeah, that's it from me for now, guys. I'll see you in the next one.